Maybe you want the newest tech available in homes today. Maybe you want peace of mind. And my wife is big on wanting peace of mind. And for that reason, you want a warranty that's covering bumper to bumper, covering everything in your house is covered for the first year or two. Maybe you want to have it your way. You want you want your cabinets to be navy with gold hinges, and you want your island to look a certain way, and you want your floors to look a certain way, and you have a very specific design choices. Maybe you got some special things you like to do with your house. You like to use your garage as a workshop. And for that reason, you need extra insulation in the garage walls. Or maybe your office is in the house and you have young kids running around. And so you don't want glass French doors that'll rattle a little bit and aren't very soundproof. And you want to pack extra insulation in the walls in your study. There are so many special things, so many reasons that you might want to buy new construction. And one of the reasons I love living here in St. Johns County is there are so many options for new construction. My family and I have bought two new construction homes here in St. Johns County, as well in other areas. And my team and I, we have helped literally hundreds of people buy new construction homes right here. We know the site agents, we know the builders, we know the reputations, we know the incentives. We'll get into that in a minute. But we have our finger on the pulse of what's happening here. And we also know that there are mistakes that you can make. You can bake mistakes you can make when you're buying new construction. And today I'm going to talk about three mistakes that people make when they buy new construction, and it can cost families tens of thousands of dollars. In the past few years, I've heard of families, thankfully not working with our team, but I've heard of families that have ended up being out of pocket over $100,000 because of certain mistakes that they made during the new construction process. Please don't let that happen to you. Reach out to us. Let us help you navigate this process. Today, the mistakes we'll talk about probably aren't going to be the ones that are going to cost you $100,000, but gosh, they can definitely cost you tens of thousands of dollars if you make the wrong mistake or end up in the wrong home, or not all about money. Sometimes it's about comfort. Sometimes it's about disappointment. Sometimes it's about unmet expectations. So I won't rattle on and on about this, but let's go ahead and we will start with mistake number one. Mistake number one centers on lot choice. And this is a mistake that my family and I made. Okay, I'll take ownership of it. It's a mistake that I made 11 years ago when we moved here to Northeast Florida, when we moved to Nocatee. And I don't want to say we suffered from it. We loved our neighborhood. We loved the people in our neighborhood. But because of the choice we made around lot selection, didn't ultimately uh, didn't work with the goals that we had as a family. And so we ended up moving out of a neighborhood that we loved, away from neighbors that we loved, to another neighborhood where we love the people and we love the neighborhood as well. So like, we're not suffering here, but it would have saved us a lot of hassle, would have saved us a move, would have saved us a lot of things if we had maybe just slowed down, thought things through around our lot selection, and made sure that it really met with our goals. And so, yes, mistake number one is not being intentional with your lot selection. So when I say lot, what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about the land that your house sits on. And here in St. Johns County, we really have five main types of lots that you'll find. That's taking out things like canal front or riverfront or ocean front. Yes, we have those here, but the five most common that you find here in these master plan communities, especially, would be number one would be an interior lot. And so this is what we bought when we moved into Nocatee. I don't know why this little thumbs up is popping up on my screen, but anyways, number one was an interior lot is the interior lot. And that just means that you have, uh, your backyard backs onto somebody else's backyard, or there's not like trees or lake or everything behind you. It's someone else's property behind you, beside you. You're surrounded by other homes. So more of an urban or a city center type of feel. So that'd be number one. Number two would be preserve. We talk about preserve. That means behind you is trees. It's trees, it's grass, it's woods. Typically here, it's going to be some live oak trees and a lot of those tall, skinny pine trees. So that would be number two. Number three would be a water lot. And typically here, when we talk about a water lot, you can expect to have neighbors across the lake from you. And so you've got, you go in your backyard, you look across the lake, and you've got some other backyards there as well, which takes me to lot choice number four is my personal favorite, which I haven't owned here, but very, very amazing lot, is the water to preserve view. And so you have a lake behind the house, and then behind the lake, you don't have more houses. You actually have trees and woods and pine trees and all that good stuff across the lake. And then number five is something that we're seeing more and more in these planned communities. And those are alley lots or rear garage homes. And so when you look at the front of the house, you see this a lot in Nocatee now, you see it in Shearwater, and a lot of these, in Rivertown. A lot of these neighborhoods will have no driveway, no garage on the front of the house. And so it's sort of front porch living. So you have your main street that runs in front of the house, and that's where the front of the house is, obviously. And then around back, there's sort of a smaller street. They call them alleys, and your garage will actually be behind the house. So there are pluses and minuses to all of these lot types. And I'll share those in another video with you. I think I have one floating around where we go through those different lot types. But the point here is being really intentional with what you're selecting when it comes to the lot. The mistake that we made, we bought an interior lot. At the time, we looked at it. We were moving from overseas, and I was only in town for about a week. And so I went out, and Nocatee was brand new. We were in Greenleaf Village, and we looked at this home that was under construction. And behind it, you could see the sunset. There was trees. It was beautiful. But I knew that houses were going to be built behind me, but at the time, you just didn't really see it. So I had the opportunity to buy another house that was very similar that was on preserve. So it just had trees behind it. But I'm almost embarrassed to tell you this. That other lot was going to cost about $8,000 more. And so it was going to take us from 260 to 268 or something like that at the time. And over that $8,000, I decided, nah, we don't have to have that preserve lot. We're fine with a back to back with an interior lot with houses behind us. Well, lo and behold, behind us were built one, two, three two-story homes behind us. And again, at the time, it wasn't really a big deal. We had little kids, they played in the backyard, we had a little playground set. Everything was awesome until we decided to install our own pool. And at that point, we're just like, do we really want to have these two-story houses behind us as we're trying to swim? As I'm walking around in my Speedo, do I want all the neighbors looking at that? Well, they probably would look at that very long. That might actually get us some privacy. But because of that, and that $8,000, which was pretty much like negligible at this point, 6 years later, we decided to pack up and move to another community where we got an amazing cul-de-sac with an amazing pie-shaped lot that backs onto trees. So the mistake that you can make is not being intentional with the lot choice that you want and aligning that with the goals. Our goal in this case was a goal for a pool, just really understanding what you're looking for. And then there's a couple other mistakes that you can make, especially with preserve, is you want to be 100% sure that you know what's happening with the preserve behind you. I started thinking about in Nocatee, there were people that bought in the ranch in 20 Mile, it was called, and there was a tree line, and behind that tree line, it was just zoned for, I think it was zoned for commercial, but so some people maybe weren't working with an agent that was paying attention, and they bought these homes at the time were some of the most expensive that you could get in Nocatee, and then they ended up putting self-storage some nice ones, but self-storage units behind there. And the trees were not as thick as maybe they thought. And especially in the winter when things are maybe not as rich and full in the growth, you can see the commercial buildings behind there. Not what they were expecting. A lot of disappointment going on there. I've seen that in a lot of different places where people aren't paying attention to what's going to happen behind. And even right now, currently, it may be a beautiful farm with horses. And then later on, what happens when that family sells that farm to a developer? A developer comes in and puts houses in. So it's not, I'm not saying preserve is bad. I love preserve. I live on preserve. My preserve behind my house is interior in the neighborhood. So it's all owned by the neighborhood. There's not room to put a street. There's no plans to put a street. It's legit preserve behind me. It will stay that way. Um, there's nothing going behind my house right now. It's just going to be trees. But these are things that you want to work with an experienced agent and someone who knows the area and knows the neighborhood and can walk you through the options and the things that might happen with that lot. So another thing to think about when you're thinking about lots is the orientation of the lot. Which way is it facing? And what do you like to do? So a lot of the sun comes up in the east and goes down in the west. And here in Florida, the sun gets pretty darn hot. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can argue with me that the sun's always the same temperature. Whatever. It feels extra hot in Florida. Okay. I think maybe we're closer to the sun. I don't know how it all works. But when the sun is coming down in the west in the summer and it's not setting till 8, 9 at night, and you're grilling out in your backyard and it's 7 p.m. and that sun is just shooting its rays into your backyard, it can be real sweaty and you might not have appropriate shade and it might not be comfortable dining out in the backyard with the family with a west facing lot. That said, some people really enjoy the sun and having that warmth. And with a pool in the backyard, maybe you want to have as much sun as possible. Maybe you really want a west facing backyard. A lot of people want a north-south facing yard so that the sun just passes over top of the house. It's never really got it's never really directly pouring into the back or the front of the house. There's, things you can look at as far as breezes go, and you can get really down to the nitty gritty. And I don't go that micro typically, but you do want to pay attention to the lot because guess what? You can't change in the house. You could change condition a lot of times. You could change price, but you can't change the lot and the location where it's sitting. So number one mistake, not paying attention to the lot choice and making appropriate decisions around that. The second mistake that people make when they're buying new construction is really centered around inspecting. And a lot of times people are buying into what the builders are telling them that, hey, the county's out here, the county's doing all these inspections. And so you don't really need to inspect yourself. And I would be all on board with that. But the truth is the county has a lot of homes to inspect. And I don't know if they're staffed adequately or not. I have no judgment on that, but I do know that they're not as thorough as an independent private inspector that you hire that has just your interest first and foremost in mind. They're not going to be as detailed as your own private inspector. And so 100% recommend at the bare minimum having inspections done, what we call the pre-drywall inspection. And so that is before the insulation goes in, all the electrical, all the pipes, all the low voltage wiring. If you have pest control running through the walls, all that stuff is exposed and can be looked at. And the good news is if you find a problem during this time, if something's not where it's supposed to be, then it's super, super easy to have the electrician come in and move that outlet from here to there. Super simple. If the TV's on the wrong wall, really easy to move it from here to there. Like it's not a big deal at that point. Once the insulation goes in and you can't see things, then once the drywall goes up, it requires cutting and removing and patching and all of that. So slowing down the speed up and getting as much figured out and getting everything perfect and correct before the drywall goes up is better for everybody, better for the builder too. And working with quality builders that recognize this is awesome as well, because they actually appreciate having the second and third set of eyes on there, because it's not in their interest either to have to go cutting into walls and making changes because of oversight and mistakes. These houses are being built by humans. I guarantee you there's going to be mistakes made. And so we want to catch them as quickly as possible when it's as easy to fix as possible. Now, on the other side of things, one mistake you could make in the inspection process is hiring the wrong inspector that just has an axe to grind and just wants to prove how thorough he is, and will take these little tiny molehills and create giant mountains out of them. And understandably, the builders don't like that, because um, you're taking little things that could be fixed pretty easily, or maybe things that, this particular inspector has these little picadillos, and they're things that might possibly be problems in the future. So I guess this isn't really new construction related, but I had one inspector that did an inspection on a house. Wasn't one of the guys that I'd worked with before, but my buyers liked him and had hired him to do an inspection. And there weren't gutters on the side of the house. And he started talking about the need for gutters and said, "Hey, if you don't get gutters up here, this house is going to need ramjack," which, if you don't know what that is, it's like foundation issues and they jack up the house, and don't want to hear those words as a buyer. And just out of the blue, like, it didn't make any sense at all. The deal ended up blowing up in that case. But you want someone with what I call bedside manner, that can explain to you uh, possible issues with the house and work with the builder to not like take little things and make them seem much, much bigger than they are. Because I tell you what can happen, and what often will happen in this case, is if you start coming in guns blazing and taking little things and making them into big, big, big things, the builder's going to get defensive. And then they're going to go right to the contractual standards and say things like, "Okay, we're only going to repair defects for things that you can see from a 6-foot distance. So stand 6 feet back, look at the wall. If I can't see the defect, we're not going to fix it." Where, in my experience, for the most part, when we have a good, cordial relationship with the builder, when you're doing the taping before close, they're going to fix little things too that you can see a little more close up. But super important to work with an inspector who has your best interests in mind and is going to point out all these things that are going to affect the value of the house, and that are safety concerns, and that are just making sure things are built solidly and proper, but without taking little cosmetic things and making them into big, big deals as well. Not inspecting, or not inspecting with the right inspector, would be mistake number 2. Oh, and just to close out that thought, so pre-drywall inspection, super important, and then pre-close inspection. And what that lets us do is get a full report from the inspector. And then we're able to give that to the builder and say, "Please fix these things on this report before we close." The third inspection that is awesome to have is before your 1-year warranty is up. So we call it the 11-month inspection, because typically you've got a 1-year warranty, it's 12 months. At 11 months, we love to get an inspection done. And then again, bring that back to the builder's warranty department and say, "Please fix these things that my inspector found under warranty." And then really in that first year, you can expect things that maybe you missed in the other inspections, just because water is flowing all the time, and there's been hot and cold from air conditioning and heat. And it's been through all the seasons, and it's given the house a chance to settle. And any little gremlins that might be hiding have showed themselves. The inspector can get in there, can make a full report, take it to warranty department, and get those things fixed. So inspections, get them done by the right person. And that is another reason that you should work with an experienced real estate agent, an experienced team who has worked with a lot of inspectors, and we know the good ones, and we know the ones that you probably want to pass on. And mistake number 3 is all centered around incentives. Now, it could be not receiving the incentives that you should be receiving, or not using them correctly. When I say correctly, I mean in accordance with your goals that you have financially for the purchase of your home. Let me explain. First of all, not receiving incentives. A lot of times it's pretty simple to receive incentives. The builder is this big national builder, maybe nationally, they're offering certain incentives, price off a home, design credit, build an outdoor kitchen, lots of different ways, a new pool, lots of different ways they're going to offer incentives. And then also, though, a lot of times builders do have incentives available, but they're not really advertising them. And if you want them, you've got to ask for them. You got to know what they are. And that is where working with agents like me and my team, we are talking to each other all the time, all week long, and asking each other, hey, I have buyers interested in neighborhood X with builder Y. What are you seeing out there? What are the extra incentives? If they're offering any, what are you seeing? What kind of deals are you getting? And so when we go to meet with those builders, we know what other people have been receiving that week. And so that knowledge that we benefit from, you benefit from to know that you're getting the best deal possible on your home.
So once we're receiving these incentives, it's important to know that typically we can make sure that they're applied in a way that works for your goals. So it may be design tender credits, could be price off the home, could be price off lot premium or free lot premium. It could be rate buy downs, a lot of different ways these can be applied. But in our experience, typically there's a pool of money that can be used and we can get creative to make sure that it is stretching your monthly dollar the furthest or giving you the lowest price or some kind of combination between the two. There may be times that you want to buy the rate down because you're looking long term to have a low monthly payment. And so you're going to take a lot of the closing cost assistance and you're going to buy that interest rate down. But you could be in a time like today at the end of 2023, and we're looking at pretty high rates. But we expect maybe rates are going to drop next year. And so maybe you don't want to take all those closing costs and waste them in a sense if you're going to refinance next year or in the next couple of years anyway. So I'm very fond of saying math is the path, and we will talk through your goals.
Really understand what you're trying to accomplish and make sure that those incentives get given to you in a way that meets your goals.
So those are three of the many, many mistakes that you can make when you're buying a new construction home here in St. Johns County. But please don't be afraid, don't be intimidated of buying new construction. The most important thing is work with trusted professionals that have done this hundreds and hundreds of times, help so many people do this, and we will help you navigate the minefield and avoid the pitfalls that can come with new construction so that your expectations can be met and you can have a house that you love and have peace of mind in and enjoy for years to come. Look forward to chatting with you again soon. Stay classy, St. Johns County.